Hi there, Yuko. My name is Ellen, and I will be correcting this essay for you today. I read your email. I understand that you've had trouble with IELTS, with getting a 7 in writing. Let's see what we can help you with here. So you have sent us a task 1. I would also love to see a task 2 from you if possible, but let's take a look at what you have written here in your task 1. Let's see, calorie source for UK male. Oh, okay, yes, I've seen this one before. All right, fine. Okay, this is an interesting one. A lot of people misunderstand the information, and so they express it incorrectly. Let's see how you did with this. Okay, it's actually a bar chart because we call them line graphs, but the rest of them are called charts. So pie charts, bar charts, okay? So the bar chart gives information about 4 calorie sources for UK men. It's not really by, but in 3 different age groups. Overall, the highest proportion of intakes were in all age were different in all age categories. Okay. On the other hand, pulses were recorded the lowest rate under 49 years old, while it was the main calorie source for people over 50. All right, so the first thing I'm seeing here is some awkwardness in grammar. There were cleaner, more accurate ways of saying these exact ideas. I think the information that you decided to pick out was fine, but let's talk about how you could have written this overview in a clearer way. So you wrote that the highest proportion of intakes were different in all age categories. First of all, this didn't really feel like the right word for me. I think what would have been more appropriate was that something like, in each stage of life, a different category was responsible for the highest caloric intake. Okay, so that would have made more sense for me. And then I also would have said that, let's see, what did you write? Pulses. Okay, maybe you could have said something like the over 50 group was that which recorded the highest percentage of any particular food group, specifically pulses. Okay, that was another way of saying it. It's a little wordy, it's a little awkward. So maybe if you had just stuck with that first sentence, you would have been fine. Just saying that the caloric intake varied with each age group, and the food group that was most responsible for caloric intake varied. That's pretty much it. That's how I would have said this. All right, but let's move on. Let's see what you wrote in your next paragraph. In the age group 0 to 24, dairy products showed the highest percentage at approximately 43%, followed by meat and vegetables at exactly 20%. Okay, each. All right, you want to say that they're each. It's a detail, but still, it's an important one. Regarding the next age group, all right, well, okay, there's pulses there. You didn't mention it. But so we have no information about that. You could have just said one tiny little sentence and pulses were slightly less. That's it. You don't really have a lot of information here, okay? You only have 12 pieces of information. So while you don't need to go into a ton of detail about every single piece of information, there's not so much information here that you should leave things out. That's the case when you have a lot of information, like when you have, say, for example, over 20 pieces of information, or sometimes even over 15 pieces of information. You could leave something out. But I think 12 pieces of information, which is what you have here, is really rather doable. So I wouldn't have left pulses out. In fact, what you could have done, why don't you try something like this? You could have said that this was 43%. The least consumed, or rather the category that was least responsible for caloric intake was pulses at just under 20%, and both dairy and meat were slightly higher at exactly 20% each. Done. Okay? And that's really it. This way you've covered everything. You started with the high, you went to the low, and then you just kind of smooshed in the information about meat and dairy. All right, let's take a look at your next paragraph or your next section. Regarding the next age group, 25 to 49, meat was the largest calorie contribution. Well, caloric really contribution is the right word here, even though I know it's a little strange. It was the largest caloric. Yeah, was responsible for the large. Yeah, all right, it's fine. It's fine. It's an awkward kind of expression, really, any way you look at it, even for a native speaker, believe me. Okay. So meat was the largest calorie. How about this? Contributor. That would have been a right word here. That's even better. Meat was the largest calorie contributor at 50%. Good. Which was not twice as many. Careful, because we're not talking about something countable here. We're talking about percentages here, which aren't really countable. So it's twice as much as dairy items. All right, that's a nice way of doing it. Good. Vegetables followed them at about 15%. The rates of pulses were the smallest in both age group. Here's where you put pulses. All right, now that's awkward. Because all of a sudden now you're linking it back here, and that's rather confusing. Yeah, I would not have done it like this. It would have been okay to do this if you had mentioned pulses earlier. So if you had said, as with the first age group, the rate of pulses were also the smallest at 10%. Okay, but when you introduce it the first time here, it really feels rather awkward. Okay, does that make sense? So I'm suggesting doing pulses the way I said earlier. And then since you wanted to link these two and say, hey, look what they have in common, pulses are the lowest group, then this is one way you could have done it. And they could say, as with the 0 to 18 group, pulses were the lowest in this group as well at 10%. Okay, and that's actually a good thing. So I'm glad that you tried to do that, to kind of make connections between the true age groups, but it's just the way you did it was a little awkward. All right, so let's move on. In contrast, in the age group of over 50, the percentage of pulses was the highest at approximately 65%. All right, that's good. I'm glad that you did that. So you went to that pulses were the lowest and then said, hey, look, here it's the highest. So that's nice. You didn't have to say the, so get rid of the. Dairy, meat, and vegetables were by far less popular than pulses at around 15, 20, and 10% respectively. Okay, that's okay. I don't love it, only because it feels really very much like a list. You're only at 161 words here, so you could have said a little more. You didn't have to report this like such a list here. So what could you have done? Well, you already told us that this is 65%. And so we know that the three of them together are around half, really. So that's something you could have said. Let's see. So why don't you do something like this? You could have said, let's see. Okay, so it was the highest of 65%. And then the other three food groups were far less popular in comparison, full stop. Meat at 20% was just a third of the proportion of pulses, okay? And dairy and vegetables were even less than this. Dairy was only 15%, and vegetables was the lowest category at 10%. So just emphasize that this is the lowest. I also think it's really interesting to emphasize that the pulses were so low here. You mentioned that they were 10% before, but you could have said that this is really like the lowest, that this and this here, this and this are the lowest figures in the chart. And it's also important to mention that this is the highest, because you did do that. You did say that it was the highest here. So you want to emphasize those highs. You want to emphasize those lows. I'm seeing a lot of really good things here. I thought this was a good answer. in general. You did pick out a lot of nice things. You are attempting a lot of nice things, a lot of nice comparisons. A lot of the language was really quite good. And this is a rather tricky one because of the vocabulary you have to use, like caloric intake and calorie contributor. And so that becomes rather awkward. Now, as I mentioned to you before, I've seen this bar chart before, and a lot of people get it wrong. Do you know what they do? They treat it like a dynamic chart. So they think that, for example, people have said in the past, meat increases and then it decreases. Well, meat never increases nor decreases because this is not dynamic. You understood that, and so that's wonderful. Believe me, a lot of people don't understand this. So good job in understanding what the bar chart is showing you. I said in the beginning that I'd like to see your task 2. I feel that even more strongly now. I would love to see what you're doing in task 2. Because I know that you need a particular score. I know that you said that you were stuck at 6.5. I thought you said that, or maybe you said you were stuck at 6. There were, like I said, a lot of really good elements here. I agree with the score that you mentioned to us. I don't remember if you said you were stuck at 6.5 or 6. I understand both scores, essentially, but I definitely would like to see what you're doing in task 2 as well. There are a lot of different ways that you can continue to work with us. So if you found this helpful and you would like more feedback from your writing, please check in with us, see what other options are available. I really do want to help you get over this issue with IELTS. So hopefully we'll be able to work together in the future. I'd love to see more of your work, okay? So best of luck to you, and I look forward to hearing from you. Good luck.